Good morning and welcome to everyone online. Today's Bible reading first one comes from Isaiah 12. In that day you will say, I will praise you, Lord. Although you were angry with me, your anger has turned away and you have comforted me. Surely God is my salvation. I will trust and not be afraid. The Lord is my strength and my defense. He has become my salvation. With joy you will draw water from the wells of salvation. In that day you will say, give praise to the Lord, call on his name, make known among the nations what he has done, and proclaim that his name is exalted. Sing to the Lord, for he has done glorious things. Let this be known to all the world. Shout aloud and sing for joy, people of Zion, for great is the Holy One of Israel among you. The second reading comes from Matthew 5, and just reading through the Beatitudes again. Now when Jesus saw the crowds, he went up on the mountainside and sat down. His disciples came to him, and he began to teach them. He said, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven, for in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you.
Thanks so much, Karen. So our theme for February is blessed, and I just want to start off by thanking Dr. Rachel Crone for bringing the word to us last Sunday, and she of course is the lecturer at Trinity College in Old Testament, and she's one of the many good reasons you might consider doing a short course there or undergrad or postgrad work. It is a fantastic place to get a rich grounding in the word. So thank you, Dr. Rachel Crone. Today we're just going to hone in on one verse out of the Beatitudes, and that's verse 3, blessed are the poor in spirit. And that word blessed, as we said a couple of weeks ago, that word makarios, it means the resulting happiness when one is living in the favour of God or living in the kingdom of God. It's a word that means more than, hey, I'm just happy or I'm in a good mood. It means I realise that I've been blessed by God in a really special way. And often, we talk about being blessed and something good happening to us. I wonder, as Christians, we should think about that. We should, consider the events of our life and say, well, how is God working through that? And I wonder if there is a time you can recall in your life, think about it now maybe, where you feel like God has worked in your life in some obvious way, where God's done something really good or beautiful. And you've said, look, I want to give God the glory in that. And maybe that's happened recently, maybe it's happened years ago, but it was really significant. Probably you might be thinking, for some of us, about the birth of our children or some incredible experience we had, maybe on holidays, or even that time you came to know Jesus as your Lord, and that moment may have been just so significant for you. Recently our family had a moment where we just said, oh, look, okay, God, we're just chalking this up to you. This is all up to you, God. And it started when our son Asher, at the end of last year, when he was in grade 11, he said, I think I'd like to be an electrician. And we said, okay, let's think about that. What's the pathway for that? And so we started to do some research, and we found that the best approach to that is to do a pre-vocational course. You can do that during high school, and we had a look online where you could do that. And the one that's on the north side of Brisbane is over at Bracken Ridge, the TAFE college where they do this course, and it's about a 30-40 minute drive from our place, and we looked it up online and said, oh, okay, that's an hour and a half on the bus, but okay, you're going to do this, all right, and we applied, and they said, look, sorry, we're all full, it's a very popular course, have you considered applying at Mitchelton High School? They have a pre-vocational course there. Now, Mitchie High is about 200 metres from our front door, and we didn't even know they had a pre-vocational course, and this is over Christmas, so we couldn't contact the office, and the very first day the office opens, my wife Narelle rings the administrator of the course, and she says, I'd like to put my son's name down for the course, and the lady said, look, I've just come back from holidays, I'm literally just opening up my computer, turning it on now, but she said, I know the course is full, but we'll put you, oh no, hang on, no, someone's cancelled, your son's in the course. And I just said, oh, come on, God, that's just, now you're just showing off, this is crazy, by no planning on our part, or no good parenting particularly, this just came together perfectly for us. Almost certainly when we talk about, what's the time you've received God's blessing, none of us were thinking of times when, we were really doing it tough, or things, we were in a bad place or stretched beyond our limits. And we don't think of that as kind of a hashtag I'm blessed moment. And yet, when we look at and drill down into the Sermon on the Mount and the Beatitudes, this is where Jesus is talking about the blessing, and remember, this word blessed is used all through the New Testament in a really particular way. And one of the good examples here are, blessed are all who are invited to the wedding banquet of the Lamb. So that a sense of being invited into something beautiful and special that only God can do. That's when you're blessed. But as I said, it's highly unlikely we're thinking of a difficult time, or a time of loss, or when you've been feeling like you're insignificant, or you're a nobody, or you've been treated rudely or unfairly by someone else. We don't see that as the time of being blessed. And this is what's so difficult to understand, that when Jesus is offering us the flourishing life, that the life in the favour of God, it sounds like the opposite of the good life that we have in our head. But Jesus is, challenging us with this sense of life in the kingdom, a blessed life, a makarios life. These are then the markers, as we read them in the Beatitudes, of that life. And we don't like the sound of them. If you're like me, as I read them, it's not what I had on my list of things that I wanted to tick off for 2023. I don't want to be mourning. I don't want to be hungry. I don't want to be persecuted. I don't want to be poor in spirit. And yet these are the ones that they realise that they absolutely need to trust God, that they are relying on God to do for them what they cannot do for themselves. And they acknowledge their spiritual poverty, and they receive the good thing that God gives them that they can't take for themselves. Now, I just want to place this teaching in its time by comparing the words of Jesus to another teacher, another Jewish rabbi who lived 150 years before him. And I think it's a good comparison because the words are so confronting for us now. Well, what were the words like in the time of Jesus? Now, I realise this is hard for you to see. This is a teaching from a rabbi called Ben Sira. Now, he wrote this, and it was considered highly significant in his time. He was a popular teacher, and he talks about and uses the same kind of form of writing you can see there by saying, who are the blessed ones? And so he says, blessed is a man who can rejoice in his children. Blessed is a man who lives to see the downfall of his foes. Blessed is a man who lives with a sensible wife. Blessed is the one, has his words, not mine. Blessed is the one who does not sin with the tongue. Blessed is the one who has not served an inferior. Blessed is the one who finds a friend. Blessed is the one who speaks to attentive listeners. How great is the one who finds wisdom, but none is superior to the one who fears the Lord. So it seems clear to us from reading this that this respected Jewish teacher has assumed really the values of his time and culture and expressed that in religious language as the blessing of God when you're living a life that's got success and status and you have the admiration of your peers in many ways. Blessed is the one who does not serve an inferior. That you've been saved from having to be employed by someone that you consider is beneath your social strata or your status. Blessed is the one who lives to experience a kind of schadenfreude, the pleasure at seeing the misfortune of your foes, that you are able to see that you get up on those who were opposed to you. Blessed is the person who finds an audience of people who are attentive to them, because that gives you some status as a successful influencer or a thought leader. People want to know what you're thinking about or what you're tweeting about. And so the wisdom teaching here, very close in Jesus' time, shows how it conforms to the time and the age that he lives in, which is, again, it resonates with our own. And how challenging the words of Jesus must have been to those who heard, as it is for us now. And they're so countercultural and they're so challenging that we really are unwilling to give up our expectations of what the kingdom should be like in place of what Jesus is offering us. And it's so easy for us to import into our faith the culture and the values of our own time. We don't look up to people particularly who are meek. We don't often want to hunger for things that, hunger after righteousness, because it might seem prudish or old-fashioned. And we continue to chase the things that will never satisfy us. So these are not easy to digest. They're not trivial promises of ease or security from Jesus. They're statements where Jesus cuts through to the quick and lets us see his full realization of all our human desires. And God knows us better than we know ourselves. And so when Jesus begins by saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit," he's talking about the people who are able to say, I acknowledge I lack the spiritual assets that I need. And the word there, poor, in the Greek, it means someone who has to beg, someone who is destitute. It's not just someone who's a few bucks short at the end of the week. This is someone who relies on getting what they need by begging. It's the spiritual beggar that receives the kingdom of God. And if you're, again, anything like me, our natural inclination is to try to achieve our own salvation as much as possible by earning favour with God through our good works. And that inclination in the heart of many of us, of course, is a lie. It's our default setting where we say, look, if I can just promote my own goodness enough, rather than receive the gift of God as the goodness of Jesus, then maybe I don't have to feel so bad about myself. And yet Jesus is saying, look, no, it's the spiritual beggar, the person who says, I'm spiritually broke. They are the ones who receive the kingdom now. This is not a future tense. They receive the kingdom today. And that's the other aspect just in this single sentence, which I've been thinking about all week, and it's just been doing my head in. But Jesus is offering, in return for spiritual poverty, an experience of the kingdom of heaven. To be, and talking about the kingdom of heaven is, I guess, like trying to describe the Mona Lisa or something like that. You have to experience for yourself the kingdom of heaven. And when you're able to experience it and know it, then you go, oh, look, I know what Jesus is meaning there. I understand that what Jesus is saying. But the kingdom of heaven, of course, is this incredibly powerful teaching that Jesus brings again and again, all the way through the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke. In Matthew, there's 28 chapters. Jesus mentions the kingdom of heaven 48 times. So there's almost 2 mentions in every chapter, almost, of the kingdom of heaven. And it's the key for understanding the importance that Jesus is placing on this experience, or this life that he's inviting us into. So when you think of Jesus, you have to think about the announcement of the kingdom. And so Jesus always brings this attention to and focus on the arrival and the extension and the life in the kingdom of God. If you are wondering what that is like and how that manifests in your life, I've been trying to give that some thought this week, and I've been finding it really challenging. But Jesus, right from the start, the very first thing he does, as we see in the Gospel of Matthew, is that he goes all about Galilee, teaching in their synagogues and preaching the good news of the kingdom, and then healing all manner of sickness and all manner of disease among the people. And so as we read the Gospel of Matthew, the very first thing he does is he finds after going out into the desert, he finds the fishermen, and he says, "Follow me," and they do. And then he goes to the regions, and it says large crowds of people from Galilee, the Decapolis, and Jerusalem, and Judea, and the regions across Jordan followed him. And so there was something about this teaching that resonated so strongly with the people he was with that they said almost immediately, yes, this is cutting through to my life. I'm understanding this. Here I'm glimpsing the kingdom of God. What does it mean to live under the reign and submit to the kingdom of God? And so we read it in the rest of the 3 chapters of Matthew. And if you've got one of those Bibles, that's a red letter Bible where Jesus speaks, you'll see for the next 3 chapters, it's all red. This is the teaching of what it is like to live in the kingdom. And if Jesus has got it right about the way to live, then it means then a lot of the things that we hold as the path or the plan or the best way, we have to rethink them in the light of the challenge of this teaching. And following the way of Jesus sounds almost counterintuitive to what we think should be the right way to a flourishing and a happy and blessed life. But what does it mean for us to offer up our freedom so we can live in a new, unsurpassed form of freedom? This is the ongoing theme for the next 2 Sundays. But as we go out this week, I invite you to ask God, reveal the kingdom around me. What does the kingdom of God look like where I am? In my family, in my workplace, amongst my friends, in my neighbourhood. How is the kingdom of heaven breaking out and growing and transforming around me? Because it absolutely is going to be transformational for you and for the people around you. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven.